Welcome back to Andersen Acres. Today we're talking about one of the most fascinating little goats in the world, the Barbary. Small in size, big in personality, and just full of surprises. Now, before we dive in, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Because there are actually two Barbary goats. One of them is the Barbari, emphasis on the first syllable, and that is a wild North African species with shaggy hair and horns that make them look like a movie villain. Then there is the Barbari, emphasis on the last syllable. Well, that guy is the domestic breed we're talking about, a compact powerhouse that's been quietly thriving for centuries across India and Pakistan. The difference is in the spelling, yes, and very slightly in the pronunciation. Don't worry too much about the pronunciation. Say it either Barbari or Barbari. The second pronunciation is correct, but nobody's going to correct you. So, let's talk about this goat, because when I said it was quietly thriving, I meant it. These little guys are efficient, prolific, and clever in ways that make you rethink what a goat can do. So grab a cup of something cozy, and let's get to know the Barbary goat. Its history, its usefulness, its quirks, and how to manage these smart little browsers if you ever happen to have them in your own herd. The Barbary story begins in the dry plains of northern India and eastern Pakistan, places like Punjab. These regions where things can swing from scorching summers to cool, dusty winters. And these goats had to put up with it all. It's a landscape that shapes tough animals, and the Barbary goat is no exception. Now, the name Barbary might sound like it has African roots, and that's not a coincidence. Historians believe that it may trace back to some of the Somali ports. Centuries ago, there were active trade routes between Africa, Arabia, and India, and livestock often traveled along these paths as well. It's entirely possible that the Barbaris' ancestors came across the Indian Ocean and adapted beautifully to their new home. Easily possible. In fact, likely. Today, the breed is officially recognized in both India and Pakistan, and even though it's a small animal, it's a major contributor to rural livelihoods. These goats are living proof that you don't need to be huge to be valuable. You just have to be hardy, resourceful, and productive. Now, the Barbary goat is compact. Adult males usually weigh 35-40 kilos, somewhere between 80 to 90 pounds. Females, around 25 kilos or 55 pounds. They're small enough to handle easily, but sturdy enough to carry their weight in usefulness. Yes, I'm petting a goat. Now, the Barbari's coat is one of the most striking features they've got. Most Barbary goats are white or a creamy white, often speckled or patched with a light brown. The hair is short and sleek, which makes them well suited for hot, dry climates. Their ears are small and upright, kind of alert, like they're listening for gossip. And their horns twist gracefully backward, giving them a neat, polished look. Bucks often have a tidy little beard, just enough to look distinguished, but not enough to get tangled up in your feed buckets. They have an alert, intelligent expression that hints at how adaptable they are. Barbary goats are curious, quick, and surprisingly assertive. They'll happily explore new feeding areas and learn routines faster than you'd ever expect. So, what are Barbary goats used for? Good question. In a word, everything. They're considered a dual-purpose breed, prized for both milk and meat. Let's start with the milk. A typical Barbary, they can usually produce, about a kilo of milk per day, maybe a little less. Okay, that doesn't rival a Sawan or a Nubian, but it's high-quality milk with good butterfat content, often between 4 and 5%. That makes it perfect for small-scale cheese or even ghee production. In regions where refrigeration is a challenge, that higher fat content also helps preserve the milk's value a little bit longer. So it's not a bad thing. When it comes to meat, though, the Barbary really shines. The breed is known for excellent feed conversion. That means it can turn a modest ration into a respectable weight gain. The carcass quality is good, with fine textured, tender meat and a nice balance of lean to fat. Because they mature early, Farmers can sell young males pretty darn quick, reducing their feed costs and keeping their turnover fairly high. They're also prolific breeders. Twins are the norm, triplets are not uncommon. Some does can even produce kids 3 times in 2 years if they're managed carefully. That level of fertility is one of the main reasons small farmers love them. More kids mean more options. Sell them, keep them, expand your flock, your herd. You can do a lot of different things if you've got the numbers to figure it out. Now, Barbary goats come with a long list of strengths. Adaptability is the first one. These goats were made for harsh conditions, let's be honest. Semi-arid scrublands and thorny grazing and limited water supplies, this is all up their alley. They browse efficiently on shrubs and trees that larger breeds might ignore, making them ideal for regions where lush pasture just isn't going to happen. And it's not going to happen in the regions these guys are from. They also thrive in stall-fed systems, which is unusual for goats that evolved in dry, open landscapes. That means they can do just as well in a more confined, intensive setup as long as their diet is managed properly. That flexibility has made them popular, not just in rural villages, but also near urban centers where land is more limited. Most goats don't take confinement very well, and I'm not saying these guys should be confined. I'm just saying it's a possible option where necessary. They're also early maturing. Some Barbary does can reach breeding age in just 10 months, though most breeders do recommend that you should wait a little longer to ensure strong, healthy offspring. Still, that early maturity and short kidding interval make them one of the most economically efficient breeds in the entire world. On top of that, they're generally docile and easy to manage. Though easy might be a relative term when it comes to goats, there's snacks happening. So easy is relative when it comes to goats, obviously. They're not as flighty as some of the mountain breeds, and their smaller size makes them less intimidating for new handlers. Now let's talk about what makes managing Barbary goats different than your average herd. Well, because they're small and efficient eaters, they don't require vast grazing land, but they do require variety. Barbary goats are natural browsers, so a mixed diet of tree leaves, legumes, and agricultural byproducts like grain husks really does work best. They'll nibble on just about anything green, but they thrive on diversity. If you keep them in a stall-fed system, it's important to provide clean, dry bedding and proper ventilation. Barbary goats are extremely sensitive to dampness, okay? Their thin coat isn't built for long-term wet conditions, and humidity can lead to respiratory issues or even foot problems. So you have to be on top of it. And because they reproduce so quickly, you also need a good record-keeping system. You have to keep track of kidding dates and buck rotations and milk yields and who's related to who. Otherwise, things can get chaotic pretty quick. And suddenly, you'll have a dozen kids bouncing around before breakfast. Parasite management is another key point. These goats are often raised in close quarters, especially in urban setups, so internal and external parasite control is essential. Deworming schedules should be consistent, and pens should be cleaned regularly. With any animal, if you're going to keep it confined, you got to keep it clean, right? Got to do it with these guys too. Finally, while they're hardy animals, heat management matters. In very hot climates, shaded areas or simple shelters with thatched or tin roofs can make a world of difference. Barbary goats don't need luxury housing, but they do appreciate protection from both the midday sun and the heavy rain. Barbary goats are known for their strong maternal instincts and consistent fertility. Because of their small frame and efficient feed use, they've been used in crossbreeding programs to improve productivity in other local breeds. But here's the thing. Maintaining the pure Barbary line has its own value. Crossbreeding can dilute their signature hardiness and high fertility if it's done carelessly. Purebred Barbary herds tend to produce uniform offspring, small, neat, fast-growing, making them ideal for smallholder farms who sell goats for many of the different festivals in the area or even just to the meat markets. Their compact size also means they reach market weight faster, which is great for turnover and income. If you're breeding Barbaries, it's worth keeping bucks and does in top condition year-round. Nutritional stress can reduce conception rates, and overcrowding can lead to aggressive behavior in males. Bucks should be rotated or given rest periods between breeding cycles because even the most enthusiastic little gentleman needs a break now and then. Give him some time off. And of course, no breed is perfect, and the Barbary has its challenges. Because it's so widely used for both milk and meat, there's always a risk of crossbreeding that blurs the original genetics. In some areas, a Barbary has become a catch-all term for any small, white, patchy goat, whether it's truly purebred or not. If you're buying Barbary goats, always go through verified sources, ideally registered breeders or cooperatives that maintain accurate lineage. Another issue is disease exposures in intensive systems. The Barbary's natural resilience helps, but when you put goats close together, especially in urban and peri-urban settings, problems like pneumonia and coccidia, all these things can spread really fast. Preventative care and regular vet checkups will go a long way to helping out in this area. Lastly, their small size means they can be bullied if they're mixed with larger, more dominant breeds. If you're keeping Barbaries alongside something like a boar or a Nubian, make sure the little ones are getting equal access to feed and space. Otherwise, they'll lose out in every feeding session. At the end of the day, the Barbary goat is a breed that proves small can be mighty. They're the perfect fit for farmers who value efficiency, quick returns, and adaptability over sheer size. They don't demand much. They reproduce quickly, and they can handle tough conditions that would test more delicate breeds. For homesteaders, they're an excellent choice if you're looking for a manageable, medium-yield goat that doesn't need endless pasture. They're also great teaching animals, small enough for kids to handle, smart enough to keep you on your toes, and charming enough to win any hearts. If Andersen Acres were ever to branch out into the meat and milk dual-purpose breed beyond are the fainting goats, the Barbary would make the short list. I like these guys. These goats are like the Mini Coopers of the goat world. They're efficient and economical and unexpectedly spunky. That's about it for me here today at Andersen Acres. If you've ever worked with Barbary goats, or if you've got stories from traveling in India or Pakistan where you've seen them in action, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. So with the ducks, would you ever consider adding a small dual-purpose goat like this to your own setup? Or are you sticking with the bigger breeds? Let me know. I would love to hear it. We'll see you tomorrow.